So hello, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to our podcast here on YouTube. Definitely like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Twitter, on the radio, or anywhere else, appreciate your listen. Thanks so much. And again, subscribe, share this video. We interview people from all walks of life, all different organizations from all over the country, and sometimes even all over the world. So thanks again for listening. Today, we have a special guest, and I read about him and his project, and I think it's really impressive. I think a lot of people will really enjoy this, and I hope people, I should say, if once they hear about the Out of Garden project out of North Carolina, they definitely should try to donate, or if they're in North Carolina, definitely help out, because I know we have people that watch from all over the country and listen too. This is Don Milholin, and he is the co-founder of the Out of Garden project. So Don, first of all, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's always nice to when somebody notices what you do. But this story that came out was really, really powerful. And so I really appreciate you catching up with us.
Well, I really want to talk about that story, but first I want to get into the nitty-gritty about the Out of Garden project, because we've saw throughout COVID that a lot of people lost their jobs. I'm in Orlando. We know the hospitality industry is slowly coming back here, but it was hit extremely hard, along with many other jobs. And I'm sure in North Carolina, you've felt the same kind of hurt through the people that you're meeting. So before we get into COVID, can you tell the people a little bit of that are listening what the Out of Garden project is?
Sure. We're the largest independent charity, food donation charity in the Piedmont of North Carolina. We are in Greensboro. Our mission is to nourish families with food to grow, learn, and thrive. We want to teach them about nutrition, have them try to eat healthier. We are the largest provider of backpacks to school areas, independent provider outside Feeding America. Before COVID, we were distributing 2,000 bags a week for a family of 4 to have 2 meals over the weekend. And then COVID hit and kind of changed things pretty drastically. We were doing 19 what we call fresh mobile markets, which is essentially our 26-foot refrigerated truck being a mobile grocery store. And we would go, at that time, we were serving 19 different areas. COVID hit. We started doing less backpacks because schools were closed, but our markets just increased dramatically from 19 to 34 a month we were doing. And prior to COVID, to give you an idea, 2019, a good year would be us distributing 2 million pounds of food. And in 2020, during COVID, we distributed more than 6 million pounds of food. Wow. So a 3-time increase. And it was just, Rob, incredible how we had our normal clients, but we had an incredible increase of first-time users, who are out of work, whatnot. And that's ultimately how you were able to hear of us, that somebody still who's struggling from the pandemic.
I want to ask you this. Whose idea was this? Was this your idea along with other people, or how did Out of Garden project come about?
So I appreciate you asking, Rob. It was my wife's idea, Christy, in 2008. But how this came about is for both of us. We had childhoods that maybe weren't ideal. I grew up in Iowa, and so everybody had a farm and people had food, but my family was pretty poor. I didn't realize until later, but my problem was I was a young man who was 6'2", 220 pounds as a freshman in high school. And in Iowa, if you don't wrestle or play football and you call yourself a guy, you're not thought of very highly. And to make matters worse, I wanted to be an opera singer of all things. Well, I did get my wish. I got a scholarship at the University of Iowa, got a bachelor's and master's degree in opera. I've sung more than 100 professional opera roles. I've taught at Duke in Carolina back in the 90s, years ago, retired when I was 35 and decided I'd go into full-time music ministry. And then this kind of happened, but my whole goal growing up was to level the playing field so that I don't care how many toys you have or how much money you have, but everybody should have food, everybody should have a coat, and everybody should have a house. Those are kind of the things. And my wife, Christy, grew up in Florida most of her years. Her father died when she was just 8. Her mother had a job, but she had 4 kids. It was hard making ends meet. It was kind of this perfect storm when I was in ministry and my wife said, we need to feed hungry children. I just thought, boy, we need something else to do. And thank God I said yes, because we were working at this for a few years while I was still in full-time music ministry. And it was my wife's idea. And it really was, we were singing at the funeral or memorial service of Ginny Tate, who started a farm here called Goat Lady Dairy. And at the service, her brother was saying how for Ginny, everything came from the garden. And my wife and I had just started doing what we're doing. And after that service, we thought, you know what, we should call this Out of the Garden Project. And that's how it got its name. We started serving 6 children at our local elementary school, Morehead Elementary School, right here in Greensboro. All of our 4 children have gone there. And when our 2 youngest daughters, who are now almost 17 and 20, were there, my wife noticed a need that she thought there were some children that seemed to need some food. And so we went to our counselor and we started serving 6 children. We served 6 for an entire school year. And then the next year, 2 people said, hey, would you do that at our school? And so we added 3 schools. It ended up getting up at one time we were serving. Right now, we serve about half the 126 schools in Guilford County in some form or another. But we more and more are giving out, like we give out 5 to 1 fresh products versus shelf-stable products. But that's how we started. It really, our logo, which I'll send to you, is really a heart, and it has plants growing out of the top. And that really is my wife's heart in wanting to change children's lives. And thank God we have a lot of friends that have joined us. We have about 800 volunteers a month that come out. We have a very small staff, 4 full-time, 11 part-time, but we give out a lot of food. And I think, thank goodness, people like yourself are passionate about making a change. Doesn't have to be feeding children. Just try to make life better for somebody doing something.
Don, my thing is, first of all, incredible work with you and the rest of the people that volunteer and help you guys out. It's really incredible organization. Again, definitely check them out of Garden Project out of North Carolina. Don, as we keep going into this, like I said, in Florida, we had our own problems just like any other state. But we have seen throughout, COVID, it's been a real tough time for people. People are slowly getting back to work, but we know that some jobs pay more than others. A lot of people are struggling to make ends meet still. So how has the need, kind of changed with the people going back to work right now compared to, during COVID, I guess I should say?
What's interesting is, yes, people are going back to work, but we still have an extraordinary number of people who are still out of work. And I think the challenge is, last year, we were very, very fortunate to receive significant financial donations as well as in-kind food donations. Those financial donations have really stopped due to COVID. Unfortunately, the need is still there. And so we are still trying to find ways to subsidize the food that is necessary. We still today, while we had 19, we have now, I think, 26 or 27 markets at the moment. We're about to enter 2 additional counties. We did get a reputation during, I think, the pandemic that you could get fresh produce, fresh meat, and shelf-stable items through us. But the challenge is to keep the donations coming in as well. So it is, yes, people are getting back to work, but not at the rate that would be keeping up, at least with those that are still needing food.
Well, Don, the way I think of your organization and the great work of bringing that fresh produce, because, we look at people that are down on their luck now, or even if they have been in the past, a lot of the places where they go to get food, it's all this canned food, high fructose corn syrup, and all kinds of things that they get to eat, whether it's fruit snacks or anything. We see this in the schools too. A lot of these schools are giving out all these junky food with tons of sugar and stuff. So, I really admire you for doing that, because this is going on everywhere. So, Are you basically getting a lot of this food through donations through supermarkets, donations through people in general? How is that coming about?
So a big shout out, Foster Cabinets is a huge producer here in the Southeast. They are our largest donor. We pick up food from them every day. They deliver to 50 some school districts, and we are fortunate to pick up what they may not distribute. We also pick up from 7 to 11 grocery stores every day except Sunday. We have a Trader Joe's here in town, which I don't know if you're familiar with Trader Joe's. We've been dying to have one come to town. Well, they called us before they started. They'd heard of us. We pick up there 7 days a week now. We pick up from 8 Panera Bread companies every morning. And so it really is a joint effort. Little Caesars out of High Point, we pick up from every day. So we get an amazing amount of food. Also, during the pandemic, unfortunately, there were some very large producers that had to get rid of food. We got 800, it was 400 tons of food from one distributor. It was a distributor along the East Coast to Asian restaurants. And then we also helped, we had a USDA grant with, well, we didn't receive it, but Foster did, and they asked us to help, and we distributed 2,800,000 pounds in 18 counties in North Carolina. And that sounds staggering because if you go to most of your food pantries in a normal town, 1 million pounds is going to be a lot of pounds in a year. Well, we ended up renting 2 additional trucks. I had to hire extra workers, but we were able to get that out. I thought previously 2 million was about our record, and how we, with the same space, and I have to give a shout out, the Church on 68 donates our warehouse to us. It's about 15,000 square feet, and it all came out of that space. And it really is, it's one of those things that I believe so strongly with the pastors there, that, if you do a good deed, then somebody else will do another. And enough people like you picking up our story, if enough people do good deeds, then hopefully everybody gets fed tonight.
Don, I want to kick this around because you talked about this at the beginning. I did find out about Out of Garden Project through the article wrote about Tasha Abrams. Can you talk about her and how she came about and her story in general?
Sure. So it was more than a year ago. Diane Herbst from People Magazine called me and said, Don, we want to do a story, got your name, and somebody suggested we call you, which I thought was amazing. Anyway, she said, we're looking for somebody to interview who has been affected by COVID. We would, if possible, if they lost their job from COVID, but then they found food through you. Well, that story was put on hold, and she called me again about 3 months ago and said, we're going to do the story. And I said, well, give me a little time. And so she called. She had a deadline like 4 o'clock on a Friday. I called her Saturday morning at 7, and I said, I just got a call from a woman who wants to be interviewed, and it was Tasha, who you read about. And it was an amazing interview. They actually were not going to publish it, and the editor was so impressed they made room for her, which was really cool. And I didn't know Tasha before she called me, but they said, would you mind taking a couple pictures of Tasha handing her food like she would get at one of our fresh mobile markets? And so I called her in, we chatted a little bit, and I said, are you currently working? No. And I said, well, I would love to hire you. I can only hire you part-time, but you can start Monday. And so she did. And she's just been amazing. And she told me today, it's not official, but somebody has talked to her about a full-time job with benefits. And I told her, she was hesitant to tell me. I said, Tasha, are you kidding? Our whole desire is for everybody to do better. I said, give me 2 weeks notice, and man, I'll drive you to wherever your new job is. And so I don't know if that will come to fruition, but the fact that somebody saw her need and said, I want to contact her, and they did. It's a local business here in the Greensboro area, and I couldn't be more excited, frankly. And if this this blog has anything to do with moving anybody forward. So there was an organization that came in, and they were a nonprofit, and their upfit cost $2.5 million to upfit a building. And I thought, you know what? If I had $2.5 million, I could change hunger tomorrow for Guilford County. it would change in the next school year. And it's funny where our priorities are. And I thought if there was, I'm not saying it's good, but there were a couple blessings that came out of the pandemic in that people couldn't wait to help. No matter what it was, they wanted to help. And there is something about that I hope we don't lose, that remember what it was like and you were in a place to make a difference. Not everybody can, but if you can. And I loved you talking earlier, of I think people always want to do a good deed. And I used to always say, if you're going to do something or you're going to give something, then give a little bit more till it hurts. It will make a bigger difference, because if you don't feel anything, then it may not make as big a difference. But I just appreciate you being willing to talk about this, because it really, I had one of our AmeriCorps workers said, you know what, I think I'd like to move back to South Carolina and I want to start an Out of the Garden project there. And so I thought, that's pretty cool for a college kid to think that.
So again, for people that are just tuning in, this is Don Milholin. He is with the Out of Garden Project. So Don, as we wind down the interview, can you tell people where they can help you out, where they can find out more about you?
Sure.
If you're in North Carolina, maybe they can volunteer. Hopefully.
Oh, absolutely. And we really are kind of an interesting organization. We have an urban teaching farm. We have a shared use commercial kitchen where food entrepreneurs can learn how to grow a food and sell it at a farmer's market. We have a whole lot of different things, but outofthegardenproject.org, you can just look us up online, call us if you have any questions. But I really think, Rob, and I appreciate, I'm still waiting for $1 million check, which would be awesome. But just if people will take that first step, that just changes something. It changes something about you. And my wife always talks about this, that we have tables that are built that are similar to our dining room table at our house. And we want those people who come to volunteer to be as changed as the people they think they're coming to help. Because I think when you do something as a group to want to make a difference, I think there's an exponential change that occurs because of that.
I really appreciate your time, Don, and I definitely want to have you on again for sure. I didn't even know you were big into opera. That's amazing.
Well, I don't want to say big into opera. That was another life ago, but I do have children that still sing, and
that's impressive. Yeah,
it's been very fun. It's been very fun chatting with you. I think that we're, I think that if we all were in this, we're like, we start Out of the Garden, we want everybody to have a place at the table. And I think if everybody would just work to get everybody a place at the table, no matter what table that is, I think we all come together in a different way. Right. So thank you so much for talking with me. I can't thank you enough.
And outofgardenproject.org. Definitely check them out. I think it's a valuable organization. If you got I believe it was the Last People magazine, definitely check out the story about Tasha, and you'll learn more about her story and also the Out of Garden Project in general. So again, Don, thanks so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it today.
You've been very kind. Thank you for having me.